What is going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadski, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. You know, it's that time of the month. We always go and bring up the tier list as a new month arrives. So we're heading into the month of September, and I'm recording this right now on the 28th of August. It's almost the 29th of August right now, and a lot of people are still predicting that there will be a Super Sugo Fest during September. We'll see what happens, but the next major celebration that comes to mind is going to be the half anniversary, which is November 12th, November 11th. We should be getting an anniversary Sugo Fest during that time period, where they'll bring out some type of character, and then of course the month after that, we head towards the New Year's celebration. Typically brings along some very powerful units. I will say though, like last year's New Year's was definitely underpowered compared to some of the other units that we've had over the last few New Year's celebrations. Just in terms of like a power jump, it just definitely feels like last year's was a bit of a letdown. I digress. We're here to talk about the tier list. I've already put all the characters in there. Of course, we're looking at the top 20 Sugo Fest exclusive characters in Treasure Cruise. So before we get into that, let's actually scroll down to the bottom here and have a look at some of the new additions to the tier list. So the new characters that are available to pick from. So, we have Figureland, Garling, and Garp were the final characters that were added to last month's tier list. So this month, let's go ahead and start off with Boa Hancock, who came out during the One Piece Day Sugo Fest. Bit of a weird one, as not really anyone predicted for it to be an anniversary exclusive. They flat out said it wasn't going to be a Super Sugo Fest, but lo and behold, it still ended up being a limited unit. So Boa Hancock, I love the artwork, the special animation, the Super Tandem boost. I love all of the aesthetics of the character. Even in Pirate Rumble, actually pretty good in Rumble. The only real thing is that in normal content, she's just kind of like I don't really get what she's supposed to be used for. So her captain ability is just kind of fine. There's not really a lot going on, but if a Boa or one of her sisters uses her special, you get 10 turns of paralysis removal, and she does enable double special launch. And I do like that, but I feel like there isn't enough in her special to really warrant there to be double launch in the first place. Like, bind removal, okay, and then you remove increased defense and rainbow shield by 3. This is like the whole reason why double special is even in this kit. I mean, to be honest, they should have just removed blue shield, rainbow shield by 7 turns as well, and then removed the double special, and then have some type of other really cool additional ability. I don't really understand this. It's kind of strange. Or even having cooldown in her special would make a lot of sense as well. Very, very weird. It also recovers HP, boosts the final tap of Quick Striker and Powerhouse. You get the 2.25 conditional boost, which can be buffed. And then if you have the tags of Straw Hat, Kuja, and Logia, you get double stacking conditional boost, and you get the paralysis through the through immunity. Now this is one of the big issues, is because she is wanting to run essentially like a mono quick team. However, the characters that are quick, that are also one of these 3 tags, are it's very limited in terms of what you get access to. And the EX Super here, or the Super Special, is very weird because you need a Luffy, but you also need 3 quick units. So that's a really tough condition. At least you can use it as a crewmate, which is a nice buff. The effect of the support is also kind of interesting, but it's only for a quick Luffy unit, so there's that. Just this unit, I just don't think is going to see a ton of play unless if we get a ton of quick striker powerhouse focus units in the future that are also Logia, Straw Hat, or Kuja Pirate. Other than that, I really don't understand why this character exists. It's so weird. I would have loved for there to be a Sandersonia and Marigold Rare Recruit alongside this to kind of supplement her abilities. Unfortunately, we just didn't get it. So anyways, that's Boa Hancock. She's not making it onto the list. She's definitely not a top 20 unit. Moving on, we're going to go ahead and have a look at the treasure map Sabo. Now, obviously the treasure map that came out throughout the last month was, a bit of a weird one. And it's just the fact that these tags, the idea of the character tags is so cool, but the implementation of it is lazy and just awful for the community because of characters such as this, where you needed to have 4 rev armies on your crew in order to get this 5-turn chain boundary at the start of the quest. The cooldown, who cares, right? But having to lock this chain boundary effect behind having 4 Rev Army characters on your crew in a treasure map, by the way. This is the highest booster, which means you want to use him as your friend captain. So trying to build around having the Rev Armies on your team was basically impossible because they just didn't boost any. Like, what are we talking about here? And the fact that it was 4 was really rough. Obviously, he counts as a Rev Army unit, so using 1, that's fine, but this should have been a lot lower, or they should have boosted a ton more Rev Army units. So I'm kind of sick and tired of these Rev Army legends that have been coming out, because they're so focused in on running Rev Armies, and there's just not a lot of them. And whenever they bring out a new Rev Army character, oh, lo and behold, it's another Sabo. So it's just, I don't like what they're doing with these Rev Army units since character tags have come out. They're just really poorly implemented. And the character himself is very mediocre. Like, he doesn't really do a whole lot. I mean, this effect, in every treasure map, getting this every TM is actually pretty sick, I will admit, but still have to run 4 Rev Army characters, so big drawback there. And the utility is like okay, tap timing stuff, okay, tap timing bonus, you get potentially weakness buff, and then if you've got the Rev Armies, you get the territory, like okay. There's just not a lot of exciting things going on here with his kit. I mean, what's he doing Rumble again? Dex and Cerebral, Rev Army. So I guess if you're running the whole Rev Army team with like Ginny, Dragon, Ivankov, Kuma, maybe you can get something to work there, but probably not. Let's be real here. So Sabo most definitely is not going to be a top 20 unit. Moving on, we have Bonney, who came out during the Kizuna Clash. Bonney is actually a pretty interesting unit. Not amazing, like not a unit that you need to go all out for. Again, character tags being very, very weird here, because with her kit, it says if you have 3 or more Bonney Pirates or Egghead on your crew. So this, like, Bonney is the only character in the game that has Bonney Pirates tag. Like, these characters that are around her, like, those are not actual units in the game. So even though this is like Bonney Pirates, you could basically just look at this as just Bonney. Because, you know, we don't have any other Bonney Pirates. So essentially, it's like, you know, if you end up using her as a captain, yes, she counts as this. Or like if you use a Bonney friend captain, obviously. And then you've got the Egghead tag. So it's basically an Egghead captain, right? Still focusing on strength and free spirit though. The special ability is interesting. Threshold removal, counter healing, and counter recovery, which could be kind of good in the future. But this debuff is very rare. You can perform Super Tandem with recovery slots, which could also be good. You get an attack boost, you get all-base damage reduction removal. It is only 3 turn removal, but it's still pretty cool. Territory and advantageous class effect if you have attack and chain lock. So this could be good in high damage content, because these are just additional damage buffs that you wouldn't normally get from normal specials. And the super special is actually okay, but you do have to be the captain, which is obviously a huge downside to this unit, so there's that. And I'm not really a big fan of her Rumble stuff, even though Strength Kuma can potentially work with her. I don't think this is a character that you're going to use on the Strength team, because the Strength team is already very cluttered in terms of the characters that are available to pick from, so I don't really like Bonney too much either. It's just very, very lackluster stuff. Moving on, we had the super evolution of Borsalino. So with Borsalino, I was actually kind of impressed with what they did here, because, I mean, look, the bar is not very high for them to get over for it to be considered a good super evolution. Just especially the last couple of months with Mihawk, Perona, Sabo, Koala, they essentially like buffed the numbers and added special bind removal. For the most part, obviously it's a bit more nuanced than that, but for the most part, they just buff numbers, give them special bind removal, we're done. Like, that's all they did for their super evolutions. Whereas with Kizaru, they took a little bit more time in giving him some interesting abilities here, especially with the level limit break buffs. Definitely an interesting set of abilities. I don't like his captain effect, and they still didn't give him super type super class, which is a crime. I don't understand why characters that don't have super type super class don't get it. Obviously, he's a Rumble legend, so there's that. But if a character doesn't have those abilities, just give it to them. Like, give them additional abilities to make them more usable in content. Like, what are we talking about here? The special ability is actually pretty good, and like reduced redundancy effects where, you know, if you've already got color affinity, you can get another additional ability instead with like base attack, extending conditional boosts, which is really weird. He also has the ability to give himself a bunch of cooldown if you have Navy Admiral or Navy Vice Admiral on the team. I'm not really a big fan of this in particular. Like, yes, it's more character tag functionalities. It's a little wonky, but this should have just been Navy. Like, why are we talking Navy Admiral, Navy Vice Admiral? Just make it Navy. It would make it a lot more efficient, honestly. But pain removal is kind of cool as well. But overall, it's bigger numbers with a lot more interesting kits, and he is like more of a utility unit. He does naturally remove special bind, so that's like 3 6+ units in a row that are special bind removers. I mean, but he already naturally had it anyway. And then he still provides a chain buff and stuff, which is kind of cool. And the cool thing about him as well is that he actually seems pretty usable in Pyre Rumble, with being able to reverse enemy specials. He actually does decent damage at a 17 CT, and like, not like quick teams were very difficult to get through anyway, but still providing a really good debuff towards them as well. So I do think that Borsalino is a relatively decent 6+, at least comparing to some of the ones that we've had, at least recently. So all that being said, yeah, Kizaru is not making it onto the list, unfortunately. unfortunately. He's nowhere near the top 20, unfortunately, but, you know, it is what it is. Okay, so now we move on to the brand new batch that just came out recently. So we're going to start off with Franky. We've already given him a relatively big deep dive, so I'm not going to touch on him too long. But I did actually pull him. For those of you who don't know, I did 4 multis using my Rainbow Tavern medals. I ended up doing Assault Rumble, acquired more Rainbow Tavern medals, spent a little bit of gems just to finish off that multi. The 5th multi that I didn't record ended up having this guy, which is bonkers. But as for Franky, I'm not the biggest fan of him, honestly. His abilities are a little wonky. He does have the effect where, like, if you use his special on the first launch, you get this, and then the second launch, you get this instead. This is annoying because in order to make the most out of him, you need to have pretty severe cooldown reduction. So he goes to 16 turns, he can give himself 13 turn cooldown, so he still needs an additional 3 turns. His super special can give himself -1 to the top row, so if he's the captain, you can make full use of that. Otherwise, you have to use additional abilities to get his cooldown ready to go. So yeah, that can be a little wonky. His support effect is relatively okay, nothing too crazy there. And his final tap is actually good. Finally, we get a good final tap. It is a little wonky in terms of the condition because you need a G-bomb or super bomb slot. So in high damage content, that might be difficult to apply, but it is a very good last tap condition, a last tap effect. And then in Rumble, I haven't had a chance to use him yet, but he's relatively defensively focused, so it's hard to really gauge how good this character is going to be. Maybe potentially with the new Boa Hancock that came out for One Piece Day could be kind of interesting. I'll have to give it a test. But as for right now, I think Franky is just a very, you know, run-of-the-mill, end-of-month legend, nothing too crazy there. And then we finish off with Brook. So Brook debuting alongside him. I like the abilities of Brook a little bit more. His captain ability is kind of nice. Starting your crew off at an 80% health cut, so you start off at 20%, which can trigger certain abilities, which is kind of fascinating. One thing that I did kind of overlook when I was doing the deep dive on his abilities is that the final effect here, where if you have 4 more egghead characters on the crew, you get the bind removal. But the cooldown, the special reverse resistance, is only on himself. It's not for the whole crew. So that's a huge bummer. If this was for the whole crew, I would absolutely love this design. But having you know, utility locked behind tags is already one thing, but then making the utility even worse than we expected it to be, yeah, that does kind of suck. So there's that. So his special ability, though, does give a defense reduction through immunity, which is relatively rare. That's a really good ability to have. Silence removal is a little, you know, uncommon anyway. Attack down removal, color affinity boost. If you already have color affinity or you have nullified color affinity, then you get advantageous class effect. And then if you have the tags, you get the middle and bottom row 3-turn cooldown, which is kind of interesting. And then 1.5 chain multiplicative buff. Okay. 95% damage reduction, so this could be good because this can be used as a crewmate, and 95% damage reduction is just opening up the door for really cool abuse for the percent damage reduction based attack boost. The crit stuff, whatever, it's terrible. In Pirate Rumble, I think he actually could be kind of interesting with characters like Luffy, Zoro, Sanji, the Anniversary Nami that came out this year, as well as like this guy. Like, that's a really cool combo that could open up the doors for really good Sci-Free Spirit focused teams. So there is Brook, and unfortunately none of those units are going to make the top 20. So another month of just like fluff, basically. I feel nothing really too noteworthy in my opinion. But I have made some slight changes to the top 20, so let's go ahead and get to that now. So let's get to the first little part of the tier list here, which is going to be from 16 position to up to 20. So these are the characters that I have here. So I've got Saturn, who is actually unchanged from before. We have Uta, who did get bumped down a little bit, but obviously whenever we get like a brand new batch of cerebral units, Uta just immediately becomes useful again. And whenever we get more shooter stuff, potentially could be good. Striker stuff, obviously this character is going to be good for as well. So shout out to Uta. Shanks versus Kid, I did bump them down 1 or 2 places. It's just another character that's like, I don't really use them as much as I really would like to use them. Like, I love the aesthetic of the unit. I think the unit looks cool. They do have some interesting abilities, but unfortunately there's just not a lot of use cases to go out of your way to use them. And I do feel like Shanks and Kid don't have like the greatest support options either. Like, they do have some, obviously. It's not like they're just dead in the water. But compared to some of the other characters on this list, their support pool is relatively limited. Then I've got Cross Guild here and Toki. So these characters previously were up a little higher, but because of the lack of use that I have had with these units, I did bump them down slightly. Characters that I have been using more often are characters that I have bumped up, or characters that I wish I had I did bump up as well. So as we move on up, like as I said, like 16 to 20, we're getting into here. All of these units are still extremely good, and just because a character isn't on the list doesn't mean that they're not good or anything. There's a ton of really powerful units in the game. They just haven't made it onto this list. Like V1 Rayleigh, still a character you would love to have on your account, but if we're talking like overall power level in multiple different facets, yeah, probably not going to make it into the list, right? Let's move on to something a little bit more interesting here, into the 11 to 15 position here. So with this one, I have actually bumped up the Yamato and the Sabo. Sabo, I think previously was around here. Yamato, I think was around here. So those characters I moved up because these are characters that are just ones that surprisingly I just seem to use a little bit more often than some of the other characters on this list. Like Yamato has some really interesting abilities. Being able to click one debuff and remove it by 7 turns is always going to be nice to have. Percent damage reduction based attack boost, and then depending on your team comp, you can get attack, orb, color affinity, whatever it may be. So Yamato's got some really cool stuff, and she has Rush Sugar special, applying even more damage. Sabo was a character that just seemingly comes out of nowhere, like randomly out of the blue. It's like, oh, I need to remove a ton of special bind, and he also has an EX Super that can generate tandem slots. He's going to be a great option for that, and oh, he can remove Burn. He's actually going to be a really good option for that too. Burn has actually been extremely common, at least as of late. Like I've noticed in a lot of content, they're just randomly putting in Burn, especially like the Ultra Burn, the one that you lose HP during the middle of your attacks. I absolutely despise that, so Sabo is a really nice way to counter that kind of ability. Now moving on, we've got the 3 Luffys in a row. Now, some may disagree with me putting 10th anniversary Luffy this low, but it's just the way it is. I just never use this guy. Seriously, I really never use him. Even, like, this is not a Pirate Rumble tier list, but I don't even use this guy in Pirate Rumble that much anymore either. Like, Luffy has some interesting abilities, just like there's so many other Luffys that you could potentially use on teams, and I get that, like I rainbowed him recently, right, and I still just haven't found too many like uses for him. Comparing him to the other 10th anniversary units like Shanks and Ace, the thing about him that is also kind of annoying is that his conditions for his Rush and his EX Super are much more strict. Even though like the pool of units he gets access to fulfill those conditions is larger, having to have one extra unit on that team in that specific pool of units just is a little more annoying. I don't know if you guys agree with me on that one, but I think it's a unit that I think on paper is very, very good, but in practice, I just haven't found too many instances where I want to actually use him. There's just been other units that are just easier to use compared to him. He is obviously powerhouse focused, which is cool. I like that. Fighter focused, int focused, and it's just, you know, if I'm running a powerhouse team, it's kind of hard to fit him on those teams sometimes. Obviously, it is content dependent, but he is still very good. I'm not saying he's a bad legend, it's just, I think some people may disagree with where I'm putting him on my list. This is Psy Luffy, Psy Gear 5 Luffy. This obviously does include the 6-star form of the unit. Some people would probably have this in their top 10. I just feel like the other characters I have in my top 10, at least in my opinion, I would rather have like those units up there in that pool, because I just think that the power of those units outweigh the usefulness sometimes of this Psy Gear 5 Luffy. Saying that though, like if you're an avid player of Co-op Quest, like this Luffy is going to see play, and he's just so good. And basically for any like, you know, short form content, you know, just even like PKA sometimes you just need to just ignore a bunch of stuff, bind, special reverse, defensive effects, remove 1 turn of all their beneficial effects. Psy Gear 5 Luffy can fulfill a lot of different things, so he's still a really powerful unit, of course. Obviously, in terms of like high damage potential and power, definitely way lower, but in terms of overall usefulness and utility, he is amazing. Luffy, Zoro, Sanji obviously have a lot going for them, but this is also one of those units that I haven't really found too much use to use. Very similar to Int Luffy, like I like their abilities on paper. At least I do like Int Luffy's abilities on paper a little bit more, but overall damage potential is much higher with this Luffy, but you do have to partner them up with some of the other characters that have, like, you know, the super tandems, of course, to really make full use of their abilities. So now let's head into the top 10. So the top 10 has changed a little bit from last month. So we move into from 6th position to the 10th position. So this Nami right here from the Anniversary Sugo Fest earlier this year, I don't own this unit yet. However, there has been so many circumstances throughout the month where I'm like, oh, I could put the Nami on this team, except I don't have them. There's like so many interesting circumstances where this Nami can just go on those teams and provide so much with utility, orb change, the weakness / increased damage taken buffs, and then the EX Super to give herself cooldown to potentially get her special back later. Like, there's so many cool things about this Nami. Pirate Rumble as well, obviously, you know, we have to mention it. She's very good in Rumble. So, yeah, there's been a lot of times where I wish I had this unit being striker focused, slasher focused, and also works very well with the new Brook that also just debuted. So, I do like this Nami a lot, and that's part of the reason why I did move her up. It's just because there's been a lot of circumstances where I wish I had this unit that could fulfill certain roles for me. Moving on though, we have pretty much the same units moving forward though. We've got Law and Blackbeard. Obviously, Law recently with the whole striker stuff is making him very good. Blackbeard is no slouch either, very good for Powerhouse, but Powerhouse hasn't really received a ton of stuff recently, so there's that. The DEX Pirates, absolutely love this unit in terms of damage potential is extremely high, and also like the synergistic abilities between them and some of the other striker units in this game is kind of nuts. Just some of the stuff that they're capable of doing is insane. And then we move on to Nami Karina. Not really much needs to be said for Nami and Karina. Same with DEX Roger. I mean, a lot of people would probably have Nami and Karina in their top 5. I don't disagree with people saying that. This is obviously my own personal list. And then I have DEX Roger as my number 6 position because he's just an all-round great unit. One-tap super tandem, special bind removal, attack down removal, defense removal, attack orb color affinity. He just does a lot. EXP boosting captain. Like, he's just a beast. Good support too. They can just work on a lot of different units, so there's that. And then we move on to the top 5. So I don't think it's much of a surprise. The top 5 is unchanged. We have Luffy versus Kaido in slot 5, Dex Kizaru at number 4, and then we got the 10th anniversary units in Shanks and Ace. Some people may put Shanks down a little bit more. I use him all the time. Shanks is just so cool. Ace, I mean, Ace honestly is the best legend in the game if it wasn't for, you know, Zoro and Sanji. Zoro and Sanji are just used all the time. You can use them on any team. Just the whole Free Spirit squad of like Psy Luffy, this Ace, this guy, this Luffy potentially. You can also use this when you use Zoro and Sanji to change everyone to Slasher to make full use of that. You know, the Free Spirit unit. This guy can potentially be used because Slasher team making everyone a Slasher. So you can use his Super Tandem to work for everyone, which is pretty sick. There's just like this is the glue. Like, Zoro and Sanji are the glue to make a lot of other characters work together that wouldn't normally work together. And obviously by themselves they'd have a lot of good things going for them. Buffing, attack and orb boost, utility, you know, the EX super for everyone, the class change, which is obviously the main reason why this character is as good as what they are. The switch abilities are fantastic. Zoro and Sanji get access to amazing support effects. There's just so much to go on about this unit. Like, Zoro and Sanji, I just don't know. When are we going to get to a point where Zoro and Sanji are not the best legend in the game? I don't know when it's going to happen. I just don't know. As it stands right now, they're just going to be that unit. Maybe until we get another unit that does the same thing that they do for another class. Like, that could potentially shake things up a little bit. But with Ace being as good as what he is, I don't know. It's gonna be tough, man. It's going to be tough. But, I mean, I don't think it's much of a surprise anyway. And that's going to wrap it up for another tier list, though. Hopefully, we get something soon that can potentially shake up the tier list a little bit more. But as for right now, this is the way I have it. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions about it down below in the comment section. If you guys have your own thoughts and opinions about where you would rank certain units, definitely go ahead and tell me. And of course, I'll leave a link to the actual tier list down below in the description, so you can go ahead and make your own tier list if you would like. But anyways, that's going to wrap it up for me. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed, and if you did, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I'll see you guys within the next video.